Abandoned malls, empty hallways, and flickering lights. Liminal spaces unsettle us because they exist between places. Chiller's art games like The Closing Shift, The Convenience Store, and The Night Delivery weaponize these spaces to evoke dread and nostalgia within the player, exploiting what Froud 1919 termed the uncanny, an unsettling feeling when something otherwise familiar becomes alien. My project analyzes how these games mirror real-world psychological dread. To do this, I've chosen to use mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics MDA and psychoanalysis frameworks to dissect and explain why we become so unsettled when exposed to such environments. These environments also tap into Jung's 1959 collective unconscious, where archetypes explain why liminality triggers psychological responses. Hunick, LeBlanc, and Zubek 2004 argue that game aesthetics emerge directly from mechanical design choices. This is evident in Chiller's art's use of liminal spaces. Chiller's art tends to maintain a preferred format for mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics across its franchise. Chiller's art uses mechanics like silence, flickering lights, and limited movement to create dynamics like player vulnerability. When combined, an aesthetic is created that fuels a feeling of isolation and uncanniness. For example, the convenience store uses VHS filtered visuals, a mechanic, to distort familiarity, bring the player to question their environment, a dynamic. This is a technique that is mirrored in real-life liminal spaces like alleyways or abandoned hospitals and is discussed within psychologist Robert Summers' work on Empty Space Anxiety 2018. Froud's 1919 concept of the uncanny explains why Chiller's art's otherwise mundane, somewhat altered spaces feel wrong, like revisiting a childhood home that now feels unfamiliar. Jung's Shadow Archetypes 1951 contextualizes for us the dread of these spaces and how they are manifestations of our repressed fears. In recent studies such as Gockel's Liminality in Digital Horror 2021, we have validated in knowing that game liminality triggers what is known as an amygdala response similar to that of real-world exposure. My digital artifact will visualize the connection between in-game and real-world liminality through a series of short-form videos depicting similarities between liminal spaces that can be found both in-game and reality, while my contextual report will expand on my MDA and or psychoanalytic findings using additional research. This project doesn't just analyze games, it reveals how game design can manipulate human instinct enough to replicate real-world feelings and emotions.